will be the next defensive coordinator for your Seattle Seahawks? On this edition of Seahawks Today, we will break down the top candidates in our Seahawks defensive coordinator hot board on today's show. Tyler Jones here with you. Appreciate you joining us. And let's kind of set the scene for you here of what's to come here on Seahawks Today. Mike Macdonald's defense, a base 3-4 defense. And so the expectation is that will continue, that will stay in place. So on today's show, we kind of had to narrow down this list with that in mind of coordinators that have experience running a 3-4 in some way, shape, or form. So with that said, let's look at the numbers. This Seahawks defense this past season left a lot to be desired as they're in the bottom half of almost every category. Points per game, 24th. Yards per game, 30th. Third down conversion, 31st. Opponent red zone scoring, 60% allowed. That was 24th in the league. And then opponent touchdowns, 2.6 per game. That was 22nd in the league. Comparably speaking to Mike Macdonald, who had a terrific defense in Baltimore, and remains to be seen if he's going to call the plays for the defense or not, but you have to imagine he'll have significant say in how the defense operates. His defenses in Baltimore were first in points per game, fifth in opponent yards per game, ninth in third downs, second in red zone scoring, and first in opponent touchdowns per game, just 1.5 per game. His defenses were incredible. He did a great job there. So with that in mind, we'll go over the names in just a moment. But first, we are in a sub-battle all week long with the Browns Report, Matthew Peterson and company. We are trying to kick their ass here in this sub-battle this week. I want to show them who's boss, and it's very close between us and the Browns Report. They're up by 2. It's towards the end of the week. Fourth quarter, hold up those fours. Let's win the sub-battle, finish the job. Subscribe now for the latest happenings in your favorite team. Nobody is covering the Seattle Seahawks like we are here on Seahawks Today. Subscribe now, and let's win the sub-battle against the Brownies this week and those frauds that actually hate dogs. All right, so let's start off with a internal name of sorts. It feels internal when you talk about the Baltimore Ravens with the connections to Mike Macdonald. Anthony Weaver. Anthony Weaver has been a defensive assistant with the Baltimore Ravens dating back to 2021. Prior to that, he was the DC for the Houston Texans in 2020 and had a decent NFL career as well. Spent 7 seasons in the league with the Ravens and the Texans from 2002 to 2008. And Anthony Weaver, what's intriguing for me is not only just the partnership and the familiarity with Mike Macdonald, both coming from Baltimore and everything, but this was somebody that was talked about for head coaching jobs. Despite not even being a coordinator, Anthony Weaver was so well respected in league circles that he interviewed and had discussions for these head coaching positions. Ultimately, it didn't work out. But you have to think, was some of the discussion, okay, Anthony, you were not a coordinator. We need to see you be a coordinator before we can make you be a head coach again. And the Ravens, they ultimately did not give him the job to replace Mike Macdonald. Could we see him follow suit? I think it's intriguing. Anthony Weaver, somebody that's been a DC before, has the experience, knows Mike Macdonald. This might be the easiest call to make potentially. Who should the Seattle Seahawks name as their next defensive coordinator? Weigh in the comment section. Give me a name or two that comes to mind that you'd like to see be the DC for Seattle next year. Another internal name in the Baltimore circles is Chuck Smith, their outside linebackers coach. Much like Anthony Weaver got passed over for the outside linebacker role and for the defensive coordinator role. And he's been the outside linebackers coach since 2023. Before that was with the University of Tennessee, not the Titans, but the Vols, as their D-line coach, and spent 9 years in the NFL with the Falcons and the Panthers from 1992 all the way till 2000. And it's an interesting story with Chuck Smith. This is somebody that stepped away from coaching. He and Derek Dooley went separate ways. He goes off, does his own thing, and then John Harbaugh brings him back into the coaching fold. And he did a really good job the last couple of seasons, what we saw there. The Ravens outside linebacker room was very solid. For a guy that was 1 point out of coaching to step back in and to step in and do a really good job, I thought it was one of the best stories that kind of went under the radar this year in the NFL. Another name that Mike Macdonald should be very familiar with is Steve Clinkscale, the co-defensive coordinator for the University of Michigan. Macdonald and Clinkscale worked together with the Wolverines, and Clinkscale did a really good job with that Michigan defense this year. They were the best defense in all college football, won the national title this year, and before that, his experience was as a DB coach there at Michigan. Also prior to that, for several seasons with the University of Kentucky. I'll say this. I like everything he's done at Michigan, specifically as DC. But there is no NFL experience for Steve Clinkscale. So that would be an adjustment of some sorts. That's a knock against him. But nonetheless, he's done a good job. And, the good track record does speak for itself of what he has to his name, including that national title this year. Who is the defensive coordinator the Seahawks shouldn't hire, that they should say, no man, no man, no man, that should absolutely stay away from, in the words of Jim Carrey? Weigh in the comment section, let us know somebody that you think they should not name as their DC. Got a great deal we're offering Seahawk fans for a limited time, folks. Get this. We have Seahawk hats for up to 70% off. You heard that right. Up to 70% off. So what are you waiting for? There's no better time to get some Seahawk hats. These are a few of them that we have on sale, but we have plenty of others as well. Go ahead and go to our website, chatsports.com/Seahawks hats, and see for yourself all the different selections and start saving today. The 70% off deal is only going to be available for a limited time. So what are you waiting for? Check it out now, chatsports.com/Seahawks hats to get yours today. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. Next on the list, we find Brandon Staley, the former head coach of the LA Chargers. And I got to tell you, this might be my favorite of all the candidates that we talk about today. Brandon Staley had a up and down tenure with the LA Chargers. I think he's going to be a head coach again someday, but he probably wasn't ready for this Chargers job, is the best way I would describe it. He did an incredible job as the DC for the LA Rams back in 2020. And prior to that, he was with the Denver Broncos, their outside linebackers coach. Brandon Staley knows football, and he knows defense. And I like his attitude, his energy he brings to the table. And think about this, okay? You got a 36-year-old first-time head coach. You bring in Brandon Staley, who was a young head coach in himself, his own right, and it didn't work out, right? You could be in a situation where Mike Macdonald could be looking to Brandon Staley and say, all right, what went wrong for you? What can we do different and learn from your experience? Being a former head coach is just a bonus. That, to me, it could go a long ways potentially, and bringing a veteran presence to this coaching staff, I think it'd be a great call to go with Brandon Staley personally. A name very familiar to Seahawk fans, Sean Desai, the now former defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. He is an option. He's available. Could he make a return to Seattle? He was a defensive assistant back in 2022 and ended up going to Philly to be the DC after, before that, spending 8 years with the Chicago Bears. In his time in Seattle, he was the talk of the town. Everybody was like, wow, this Sean Desai guy is brilliant. He's a good leader. He knows X's and O's. I mean, I was hoping personally that they would have said bye-bye to Clint Hurt and they would have kept Sean Desai around to potentially be DC. He goes to Philly, and Philly was just a mess this year. And they made him kind of the fall guy for their problems defensively. They end up promoting Matt Patricia, and the defense even got worse with Matt Patricia calling the shots. So I don't think it was Sean Desai's fault. He was done dirty by the Eagles, if we're going to be honest with you, of how that situation unfolded. I like Sean Desai. It's an interesting idea to potentially bring him back and jump right back in with some players that he knows very well on that front. Got more to get to in just a bit. What's your confidence level in the Seahawks defense next year? We know they got some young talent, but they do need a fresh face to get this defense back on track to play to its full potential. Scale it for me in the comments section what your confidence level is that they'll get back going on the right track. Last on our list, Jim Leonard, not Jim Leonhard, the senior football analyst for the University of Illinois. And I got to tell you, I really like Jim Leonard. Took a, kind of a glorified internship of sorts this year with Illinois, working with Brett Bielema. But you look at what he did at Wisconsin, and he was universally loved by his players, the fans. People thought that he should have gotten the Wisconsin coaching job after doing a really good job as their interim head coach. And the NFL track record, this is somebody that had a good career, played 10 seasons, the Bills, the Jets, the Broncos, and Browns. He knows the NFL game. He knows how to develop talent. And we talk about the energy, right? That's been one common theme about Mike Macdonald of what he brings to the table. This might be the one guy that could match that energy and charisma of sorts of Mike Macdonald, might be Jim Leonard. And he'd be great for the defensive backs. That is an area that the Seahawks, I think, find very important with what they've invested in with the likes of Rick Woolen and Devin Witherspoon and company there. Jim Leonard would be great to coach those guys up and continue to take that next step. Appreciate you joining us here on Seahawks Today. For more Seattle Seahawks news and rumors and the latest happenings in your favorite team, subscribe now for free, and we'll see you next time here on the channel.